What weird thing did somebody tell you that they shouldn't have felt so comfortable telling you? I was working in the photo lab at Walmart. They have a policy about not printing lewd photos, and they have to be destroyed if they are printed. 20 minutes before closing, a woman comes and asks to print some photos. I direct her to the kiosk, and after a while they start printing in the back. I notice that the first few photos are poorly cropped as they come off the machine. They're full body portraits with half her face cut off. This isn't uncommon. The software isn't super intuitive, so I check the next few to see if it happened on more. The next few photos are the same framing, just different poses. It looks like she's showing off this nice dress, and then she's reclining on a couch, and then she's on a bed, and then her legs are spread. Now I have to figure how to tell her I can't sell these prints. I'm already with the policy binder out and open to the relevant page when she comes up, and I start explaining. I'm sorry mom, I can't sell some of these photos to you. They violate our inappropriate print policy, so I had to shred. Oh, I'm so sorry, I forgot those were in there. It's fine, he's not allowed to have those kinds of photos in prison anyway. I was so relieved that she wasn't going to yell at me that it didn't register what she said until after she left. I see my mechanic like 5 times a year, and he always tells me how many Asian girls he met online and hooked up with since we last met. It's like an unprompted tradition he must get past before we can talk about what's wrong with the car. As a passenger in an Uber, I had my driver tell me that day was the anniversary of the day his son was murdered. As we drove past the spot where it happened for, according to him, the first time since it had happened. We then drove past a building where he told me the murderer worked, pretending to be a man of God with, in his words, 4 bodies on him. His son was a gangster. My driver was a 56-year-old father just lost in his grief that day, and when he picked me up, in that neighborhood in Minneapolis Midtown, it just came out. He also told me that every single day he thought about killing the man who killed his son and then just turning himself in. He told me his wife told him once a week that he better not make her a widow. It wasn't the ride to the airport that I signed up for, but that was okay. He needed to talk to someone. As a father, I could feel his pain. His kid was weeks away from leaving the life and joining his brother in the military. He told me he was killed by his second in command right after he said he was joining the service. My BS meter is always very high. He wasn't telling tall tales or workshopping material. I just happened to get in his car when a year's worth of heck came to the surface. After he dropped me off, he told me he was going home because he needed to talk to his wife. That he considers paying an escort to lose his virginity. It was back when I worked in retail, and he was a co-worker. We didn't talk much, only a couple of words, and only about work. Then one day he came to me and dropped this bomb. At first as though he was joking, and tried to laugh it off, but he was dead serious. He also wanted to hear my opinion, but I told him that this was not a comfortable conversation for me. Later another co-worker told me he tries to talk about this to all female workers, and he hopes that one of us would offer him to take his virginity, so he doesn't have to pay. That sounds like the least attractive flirting approach ever. My 89-year-old grandfather told me his and his wife's favorite position in bed. Number 1 on the list of things I never ever needed to know. Sitting with my fiance's new friend, and she starts bragging to me how she's been manipulating men, including my fiance, into doing things for her, picking up her paychecks for her, babysitting her son while she goes on a date, cleaning her place for her etc. Then she started showing me these long messages she'd sent to guys she had just met on dating sites, telling them how my fiancé was her best friend and her standard for guys. A kid I was sort of friends with in high school told me that he regularly hooked up with his twin brother. For the record, he had no history of ever being abused, and from what he talked about, it was mutually suggested between the two. They were just gay and into incest. Masturbation with extra steps. Managed a restaurant and a man was there to service the building. HVAC or something. He seems anxious and starts rattling on about his girlfriend and then her brother and how said brother fricked a cow. Immediately apologizes. I don't know why I said that. I probably shouldn't have told you that. Sorry. In 1998, I was working a job at the Family Dollar. I didn't have a car, so I walked to work. It was not the nicest neighborhood. A rather round fellow walked up to me and said, "Hey, man, you got $5? I am looking to buy a rock." I said, "Sorry, man, my butt is broke." He said, "Do you like getting your dong sucked?" I said, yeah, by women." He looked incredulous. "You have a preference?" Me, "Yeah, man, I do." He said, "Oh, that's too bad. I like to smoke crack and then suck dong." I said, "Okay, well, good luck." He said, "I'm not gay, though." Me, "Oh, of course not. See you. Excellent. Fun times." Strange co-worker, whom I wasn't ever close with, decided to tell me at work, across the entire office, that she and her husband were having marital problems due to lack of intercourse. He wanted more intercourse, but since she wasn't trying to get pregnant, she didn't see the point and said he needed to get over it. This happened loudly, out of nowhere and with no prompting. What made it more uncomfortable was that she was our HR person. My sister told me she was getting her tonsils out so that she would give better head. I'm sitting in a hospital right now to get my tonsils taken out, but for different reasons. Had a super weird chick who lived in our neighborhood once who asked me if I knew the rules of polygamy and swinging. I was like, no. She then proceeded to tell me some long, rambling story about a house party that her husband was invited to, but not her, because they wanted to sleep with her husband but she couldn't come along to participate or watch or whatever. Her husband was probably 6 feet 4, but weighed around 350 pounds. He was probably the original neckbeard. She was no prize either. I doubt anybody wanted to sleep with either of them. She also told me she hated sunbathing nude because her nipples always got super sunburned. Okay then. Dude pays me at work, then tells me he can't CM. He can have an orgasm, but then needs to use a straw to get it all out. Pooped knife too. Cum straw. Business partner of my then boss that had just introduced himself to me. "Nice team you've got here. We should all go on a trip to Thailand together. You can frick prostitutes without protection over there. They all have documents from their doctors showing that they're clean." Dude was also married, with 2 young daughters. What the actual frick? I met a professional acquaintance at a friend's show one night. We knew each other vaguely, having met a couple of times, so we started having small talk. The guy obviously had gotten one too many beers, and felt it was a great time to tell me all about his dumb moves from his early adulthood. How his fiancée cheated on him with his best friend and how he became an alcoholic. Alright, definitely awkward, but manageable so far. It took a turn for the worse when he suddenly felt comfortable enough to describe, in details, how he and his friends had up-head a teenage boy that was blackout drunk. The acquaintance and his friends were drunk and thought it would be fun to do that while the boy was literally unconscious and unresponsive. I noped the frick out of the conversation right after that and hope I'll never run into him again. When I was younger I hung out with a group of friends who drank a lot but were harmless. I guess one guy thought because we partied he could tell us about the time a girl fell asleep while hooking up with him. He took offense, so he finished on her face, peed in her shoes and stole all the alcohol from her house. We told him that's not what we were about and it was really awkward. My co-worker told me that he has had flare-ups of gonorrhea over 30 times. He has herpes, and God knows what else. He said he can't remember how many times he's had a Q-tip swab in his dong hole. He doesn't believe me that I've never had an STD and is constantly bringing it up. I don't know what compels this man to constantly talk about STDs, but he must have a forest fire going on down there. A friend of mine doesn't believe me that I have never had crabs or gonorrhea. He says I'm lying. A while ago, my now wife, then my fiance, and I were preparing to get married here in Austin. We spent several Sundays visiting some of the churches in the area that might serve as the ceremony venue to get a feel for them. We visited one beautiful, fairly large, older church near downtown. At the appropriate time in the service, the minister priest, an older gentleman, roughly late 60s-ish, started giving an odd sermon about tithing and how the parishioners had been letting the church down and in a way they were stealing from God by not giving enough. It was a bit of a strange one, and it didn't seem well constructed and thought out, much more on the fly than sermons I was used to. Anyway, after about 10 minutes of this, He wrapped up and asked everyone to bow their heads for prayer, then immediately walked off the stage and started walking down the aisle. My wife and I were about 2/3 of the way back and in an empty row. The service was not particularly well attended. I'm thinking to myself, well, that was kind of a weird. What's he doing? He's heading toward us. Oh, God. While the congregation was still mid-group prayer, he walked to our row and then slid all the way in until he was right next to me. Everyone was watching him, and now us, as they our fathered, or whatever it was. We finished the prayer and then sat down for the offering and a song. He then leaned over and whispered, "Good morning." We shook hands and he continued, "I wanted to let you know that I just had a mental breakdown up there a moment ago." Oh, hey, that's alright. I thought it was great, I stammered in reply. "You're kind. But no, I'm kind of falling apart. I saw you two come in and recognized you and knew. I didn't want you to take that sermon as typical of our congregation. I have to get going. It was a pleasure meeting you both." And he got up and walked right out the back door. We didn't choose that church. Dude, it's time for that guy to take a break and get some counseling, at the least. Cashier at St. Louis Bread Company, informing me she's on her period and flowing very heavily. I get it, I'm a fellow woman, but dang, it's a restaurant. Ma'am, this is a Wendy's. Me, sits down for my lunch break at work. Random co-worker comes and sits down and says to me, "So I've been watching Cartoon Monster P. Sounds like they had you pegged from the moment you walked in." Okay, Starbucks barista here. I was working the drive-thru and some lady comes in asking for an iced coffee with heavy cream. I pay it no mind as it's not even close to my weirdest order. She gets to the window and starts trying to explain the motives behind getting this drink. By the way, I'm not getting this for the caffeine. I'm constipated. Whatever still hasn't fazed me. I'm used to weird crap like this. She continued, "I tried an enema 2 days ago and that BS didn't work at all. That's where I had to stop and go to the back to breathe. I was not ready for that. Cause it would be gross if a woman went to Starbucks to buy coffee and drink it for the caffeine. What kind of pervert does that?" My co-worker went into great detail, including a hand-drawn diagram, about how constipated she was after one of her C-sections. She said she was so uncomfortable that she asked her husband to try to dig some of the poo out of her butt with his finger. So she put a towel down on the bed, laid on her side, and he got to work. After some successful digging, she rolled over and noticed a butter knife on the bedside table and asked what it was doing there, to which he responded, "Well, it was too hard for my fingers. We are nurses." She told this story at the desk to a group of at least 5 people. We were all mortified. Our unexpected popped knife. Over my working life, different women co-workers have shared some pretty intimate things. Having the runs, how much difficulty she had getting her BF to frick her, explaining her dating intimate history of the prior 7 years, with diagrams, ETA, diagrams, a kind of Gantt chart showing how they all overlapped, a mood web of qualities and faults, and a ruler as a visual aid to demonstrate dong sizes. Kind of related, in a previous job where I was in senior management, I had an employee come to me and ask to speak privately. He said he needed a few days off. He had just found out his son was being groped by a neighbor. He needed to be at home and deal with his son and the police, but didn't want anyone else to know, for obvious reasons. I told him to take the time off and that I would take care of things for him. I told scheduling and HR that he was to be given 3 days off, and the HR manager pestered me to know why. I told her I couldn't say, but it was a legit reason, and that's that. She was peed, demanded I tell her, and even got the regional manager involved. I told them to drop it, that I wasn't going into details. It was well within my power to make that decision, but the HR and regional managers were both C. They told me if I didn't tell them, there would be consequences for me. I told them clearly to drop it, that it was a sensitive subject, and the employee took me into his confidence. End of story. The employee wasn't one to take excessive time off, and he had sick and vacation time, so I told them there was no reason to make this an issue. The weird thing is, I didn't have a particularly good relationship with this employee. Not sure why he told me, as he was friends with another of the senior managers, who could have taken care of this for him. But I was known to be an employee first manager, and I still am. I suppose he trusted me, despite us having some differences. It was quite heavy burden to take on, knowing what this guy was going though. But you don't always get to pick your battles. Sometimes you just have to fight them. I never did share the reason why I allowed the time off, even after several of the bosses cornered and pestered me. In the end, I was let go for others' reasons, standing up for another employee, but feel this incident contributed to it. Frick em, I would do it all over again. Right is right. Yurak. Chatting with another mom at the park. Now we can chat about some pretty weird things, like discussing your kids' pooping habits would be a normal conversation. Even to some extent discussing how things are going in the bedroom isn't that weird. But I've had some weird things other moms have confided to me. The one that stands out was a mom who confessed she was a closeted lesbian in a loveless marriage who has a huge crush on her teenage son's girlfriend. It got even weirder too. Oh god. I seriously wouldn't mind being upped by an octopus, you know, like an anime and stuff. This was said to me by a co-worker, female, while on the clock, during lunch rush, in the dining room, loud enough for costumers to hear. What triggered this confession? I mentioned in passing how much I like fried calamari. I don't know if this qualifies, but some drunk girl said I would be a nice weekday only boyfriend very casually, and that felt like a very backhanded compliment to drop on me so suddenly. Yesterday the girl I'm dating told me that she had kissed one of my friends on Saturday. I actually appreciated the fact that she was being honest and thanked her for telling me something like this before we were like officially a couple. She got mad because I didn't flip my crap. I'm not on high school anymore. I'm not gonna go beat my friend for you. I felt she wanted me to be mad and fight for her. Frick that. Did I dodge a bullet? You dodged the crazy train, my friend. We had an oversharer at work. Nothing was off limits. She was due to go on holiday with her husband to Thailand. She was excited that she could get her husband an escort so that she wouldn't have to have anal on his birthday. The escort was okay as long as it was only anal. My co-worker told me he fricks his ex while choking her sometimes. Years ago, I lived in Florida. My girlfriend, now wife, and I went to a Chili's one night to get some drinks with her co-workers. After they left, we went back inside to the bar for one more drink because it was still early and we lived nearby. This older guy walks in and sits down a few stools away from us and immediately starts giving us some light-hearted crap about football. Then notices my girlfriend typing something on her phone. Within 60 seconds of meeting us, he decided to drop this. Oh, you like looking things up on them phones, huh? Google my name. We Google his name and the first result is a news article that names him as the victim of an attempted murder-suicide by his wife. She shot him in the head, then shot herself in the head right after. She died. He didn't. Police came after a call of shots fired. They found him unconscious but alive, med-flighted him to a hospital and he woke up later that day. And that was his icebreaker story. Floridians have no concept of ice, so they don't know how hard to go in order to break it. You have been visited by the comfortable garlic bread of good back support. Subscribe to AskReddit in 3 weeks or never sit comfortably again. You have a lot of time for this one. I understand if you're busy, no rush. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video, or don't. Either way, have a great day you magnificent people.